I'm obsessed with walking now. And I'll tell you why. I used to be a runner. I went from being an avid tennis player to running, and I was running marathons and half marathons. And then I started getting injured when I got into my perimenopausal years. And I was out running one day, and this thought hit me, which was, why don't you just walk? Like, why do you have to run? At the same time, I was doing some research on EMDR, the therapy EMDR, which bilateral eye movement and how it calms the brain. I was doing some research on the amygdala and how walking really helps calm the fight or flight brain because you're moving away. It tells your body you're moving away from a stressor. And if you scan the horizon as you're walking, you're actually creating this calming effect in your body. This was all around the pandemic, by the way. So literally during the pandemic, I would go out in my neighborhood and I would just walk and walk. Anytime I got anxious, I would walk. And so, but my athletic brain was like, did you work out today? Like you just walked. Finally, I realized, you know what? It's the most important, I'm going to call this workout forward movement. It's just a forward movement exercise is what I told myself. And my athletic brain started to calm down because it wasn't like I was telling myself I was lazy or, oh my God, you just went for 2 hours of walking throughout the whole day. Now you got to go work out. That wasn't really working out. So I say all that to say I really redefined walking for myself. And I'm now such a walking fan.
Yeah. I mean, even if you look at the hunter-gatherer model, culturally, we're in such celebration of like the warrior, the hunter, you know, like we see that and we're like, this is peak. But if you go to this movement pyramid, those behaviors are at the peak. They're trace and they are built on a foundation of all these other things. And we never think about the value of the other things.
Yes.
And so I do spend a lot of time writing about, you know, every hunter was a gatherer first. Gathering is much more the foundation of what our bodies really require as far as mechanical nutrients and movement nutrients. I mean, we do need, even modern hunter-gatherers will get something like 18 minutes, 25 minutes of what we would consider moderate to vigorous. The bulk of this movement is repetitive, very light intensity, but it's done outside. It's usually done in community, right? So you've got that nature and community, all things that are also nutrients for our body and what we need.
Was there sprinting then too? Because you had to run from animals and get a kill. I mean, sprinting had to be in there a little bit.
Trace. Yeah, it's trace. I mean, it's
amounts.
trace.
Yeah.
And it's in a small amount of the population. So it's not even like there's a hunter-gatherer person, right? Because there's ages and stages of life, which I know you talk about quite a bit. And so there are different ages and stages in which you would see more or less of certain things.
Yeah. Okay. So then the next one was hands, because this I've also thought about is where and hand strength is now considered a real measurement of longevity.
Longevity and health in general. Yeah. So those are making movements. So in the hunter-gatherers, it's, you know, making fires, food, ingredients take so much a mechanical conversion to become something that you can eat and digest. So peeling, and you can create a lot of making movements in your own kitchen by not buying pre-shredded carrots and not buying so much pre-moved food. You know, the more raw you get into it, then the more you're like, oh, when I'm buying, we think of saving time, but really all those time savers are movement savers. They're movement savers, and they're not even money savers because they're usually more expensive because you paid someone else to stand in the factory to shred the carrots or whatever, you know? So we talk about whole foods, and I mean like literally whole foods for the ingredients, and then whole and as close to their original shape as possible. And then above making movements are big body movements. And that the modern equivalent or the gym equivalent would be like strength training, weightlifting, but it could also be stacking wood, it's shoveling snow, it's anything where you're doing something usually repetitive, digging a hole, you know, moving bags of soil in your garden.
I was just going to say gardening.
Exactly. Gardening's got a lot of making and a lot of big body work in it. And those are, you know, very protective of muscles. And especially when you're doing it practical functional activities, you're getting not just the lift, but the lift with the twist at the same time and the bend and lift. Your daughter's getting plenty of big body work. Yeah. You know, so many people who do that are physical labor.
Yeah. And I can tell you again, as I've been aging and really thinking about protecting my body, I've noticed on that big lifting things, is I have a very, accommodating husband and a son who always wants to help me when I can't lift something up. And it can be as simple as, I travel a lot. I'm going to carry my suitcase downstairs and carry my suitcase up. And it's so easy to ask them to help me. They're right there and they want to help me. And there's been this little voice in my head that's like, no, carry it up yourself. Yeah. So that would be example of on the movement diet pyramid, we have to make sure we continue to lift heavy things and move heavy things.
Yeah, if you think about like someone else doing all of your protein for you, doesn't work. You have to do it yourself. So we need to do a portion of our own big body work every day. Certainly there's things that come up, injuries, and maybe you need to take a break from it. But yes, I think you want to look at it and say, this isn't a task that, well, it does burden you. It is literally burdening you, and that's why you get the effect of being able to be burdened. So if you always offload or outsource that, then you become unable to be physically burdened. And so that's what exercise is choosing those stresses so that you are able to do them in the future.
Yeah. Okay, wait, can I ask you one more question?
Please.
Okay, let's go back to the hand thing because I want to put this in like a daily context so that people understand this isn't hard. Chopping, cooking and chopping.
Yes.
That's hand, like carrying things with your hand, like anything that's going to involve some hand strength is what we are talking about. So making sure that you're constantly sewing, cleaning dishes, unloading the dishwasher, pulling dishes out. That can be hands. I mean, I got one thing we talk a lot about in this community is lowering our toxic load. And so things like what pans do you use in your kitchen? And now you have me rethinking cast iron pans. Like they're my favorite. And now they actually fall into the movement diet.
And they're heavy.
They're heavy.
They're heavy.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. This is brilliant.
Being able to, lift up those pans and not, bend the wrist and keep that wrist neutral while you do it. Like there's exercise built in. Our grandmothers who whipped everything by hand, they were stronger, because they were just so used to practicing. You can see a decline in the density of skeletons over time as we've been able to outsource more and more work. Whipping things by hand, I mean, we've really set up stepping back from machinery in our household. So all of my kids, if they want, you whip your own whipped cream. We have hand whisk, we have a hand beater. You can buy brand new old-fashioned style equipment like that. Chopping, I think one of the reasons we don't make some of these beautiful recipes that are within our own heritages is because they were a lot of physical labor. When you look at that and you think, I don't have time to make that, we usually have the time. Just go off your phone for a little bit or don't watch the show. And it's really, I think, maybe something more innate where our bodies are resisting the amount of handling all the potato, all the peeling, all that stuff. But that is hand use. It's hand labor. It's hand strengthening.
I love that.